Hi there, my name's Solomon. I previously trained Deji. Releasing this video to kind of touch on a few things that happened throughout camp and my experiences that I had training Deji. So early November I was contacted by people within Showstar to potentially train Deji. I didn't really know who he was at the time. I wasn't really into YouTube. A couple of people I knew watched him, so they told me a little bit about him and stuff. So we met up. He seemed a really nice guy. In November, we met in Finchley Boxing Club for the first time, where we had a chat, talked about camp. He met people that I'd put together in the team, such as Calvin, Riyadh, who was going to be around from the start, helping me out, taking him on runs, etc., and be a sparring partner also. He relocated to the local area to be able to train, so he was taking it seriously, in my opinion. Relocating ain't an easy thing, being away from family and friends, so he relocated in early December. We were supposed to start camp around that time. It was very sporadic at the start. We didn't really get going. Him having COVID in December didn't really help with the whole situation. So after he had recovered from COVID, which was like just before Christmas, we resumed camp around the start of January, from what I remember. It started to pick up a little bit. It was still a bit sporadic for me. There was times where I did say to Deji, like, we need to pick up the pace. Admittedly, we had quite a long camp, and he did come to myself underweight, which was impressive. But I knew that he needed to pick the intensity up with the training. We did have him all set up. We had a strength and conditioning coach in Calvin, who would train him 3 times a week, and I wanted him to box with me 6 times a week, working on techniques mainly. There was a lot that I felt like he needed to work on. Set up a game plan to fight Alex. Wanted him to be able to press on the front foot, because Alex being the taller fighter, boxing on the back foot would be very tough for Deji to be able to win on a decision or even by a knockout. We wanted to work on those things. It was quite tough because he had quite a lot of commitments outside of boxing, which is understandable, but when you have a fight coming on, you need to be fully committed, in my opinion. Camp really didn't get going. There was a number of occasions where I had to kind of use different approaches, but I tried explaining to him that with boxing, you've got to take it seriously. His life is in my hands as a coach. Like, I must put him through the full paces. It didn't seem like it was paying off. After that, there was points where I did say to him that, Deji, if it carries on this way, then I will not be your coach going into fight week. Leading up to the week where he moved camp, it was probably the toughest week for me, because being away from home in the evenings, every evening, coming home late and eating with family was kind of difficult, because I'd be getting home sometimes 12 o'clock, and also sometimes waiting up till late to not know that he might not be turning up. That became an issue as well. There was times where, you know, I'd be waiting at home, ready to about to leave, and, you know, Deji may cancel on me 30 minutes before training, which did become difficult at times, because number one, I want him to train. Number one, I wanted him to be fit and strong and ready for the fight. And number two, it's just like, for me, I'm waiting at home, I'm giving that time to someone. I find it slightly disrespectful, to be totally honest, to do that to someone. Around mid-January, Deji did release a video with Calvin, who's a strength and conditioning coach, he still is, and I was asked by him to come to support the video. I wanted them guys to do their own thing, but he was like, you know, I want you to be there as support. And in that video, he was doing his little bits with Calvin, the strength and conditioning stuff. So after that, we had a couple more training sessions. There was a couple of tough sessions we had. There was a few things that had been said in a few of the videos Deji released, which kind of is the main reason why I'm releasing this. Just to clear a few things up. First of all, he done an interview with Wade regarding that training was maybe too easy, or he weren't getting pushed enough. You know, he said I was a nice guy or whatever. For me, he was never able to be pushed. A person is only going to do what they want to do. You can't really force anyone to do anything. The last training session that I had with Deji before he left, this was when we was really ramping up training and sparring, because before he only had Riyadh and K Prosper from Hockwell Ring, who's a professional fighter. He's won an English title also. He only had the 2, which was great, but we was upping it with different styles of fighters. Tell a lie, he also had another fighter called Casey, who I coach, who's a young novice, but he's a 6'3", quite an awkward fighter to fight, which was good for Deji because he's not fighting a seasoned professional in Alex. We also brought in a couple other sparring partners, so in all we had 4 people there that day. Deji turned up to the training, turned up with Calvin. We had this training session. I thought it went quite well. He got pushed. So following on from this, I was contacted by someone in the background team with Showstar. They said that they wanted to have a call with me just to discuss how training was going. In this call would be Deji's manager, themselves, Deji and me, and possibly Calvin. Calvin wasn't in this conversation. We had this phone call. There was a few things addressed in it. Number one, Deji wasn't happy with how camp was going. He felt like he needed harder sparring, more professionals. We had Kay Prosper in as a professional who is a former English champion, just fought for a European Championship, who was a really good sparring partner for Deji. But Deji said that he felt like he wasn't getting pushed and he was needing someone that would really go in on him, because when he's in the deep end is when he learns. Now, we agreed. I said, that's fine, I can get more professionals in, which I did. I had people on standby coming in for the next training session. Following on from the conversation on the phone, everyone seemed quite happy because I said, okay. But after this training session, there was no more contact from Deji and his team ever again. And I had heard through the London boxing community that he had moved camp to Daly, who he's still training with now. I found that slightly disrespectful as well. This is boxing. Fighters always leave coaches. It's the same as school. Students leave teachers, move on, carry on. It's the normal thing. But the way that I was treated by the background team in Showstar, Deji and his management, I don't think was fair. In fact, I know it wasn't fair. It was disrespectful again. All you have to say is, we don't gel. I'm not getting along with Solomon in that kind of way. These things happen. Sometimes you don't gel with your coach. You don't gel with a teacher at school. It's a normal thing to do, but to do that, I was quite offended, to be totally honest. So following on from this, I think everyone found out that Deji had changed camp from a few things on social media. So Deji reiterated that in a video with Wade, where he said, I've now moved camps. He said I was an amazing guy, but he felt like he wasn't being pushed.
Speaking of your camp, obviously there was a change, especially recently, and now you're with Daly and King Kenny. Of all people. So talk to me about the change in camp, what you thought that you needed to do, and what it's been like since you started working with Daly.
So right off the bat, I love Daly as well.
He's the man, huh?
He's the man. Like, the thing is, what I needed to be pushed. Mm-hmm. I needed to get those voices in my head saying quit so I can overcome them. That's what I needed. And with my previous camp with Solomon, no offense to Solomon, like, he's amazing. Yeah, but I wasn't getting that like I am with Daly. So that's why I made the switch.
You let someone say that, you take down the chin. It really didn't bother me that much because I know deep in my heart's what I do. I push my fighters. I've got a lot of fighters and a lot of young lads that I coach that I'm a mentor for. So I knew that it didn't really bother me that much, but I thought, you could have just said that you didn't gel. I guess he didn't want to do that. He wanted to kind of say it in that way. So moving on from that again, there was the face-off and something popped up in it about the sparring and how Deji said I was getting the better of my sparring partner straight away. That's why I moved camp. I think Alex asked him a few questions like, why did you leave? Alex asked him saying, did you only have one sparring partner? And he said, oh yes, I only had one.
You're saying that none of that played into your decision to change camp 6 weeks out?
No. What played into it was me realising that I really wasn't being tested when I was sparring. I was getting the better of my sparring partner already within just a week.
You only had one? You only had one sparring partner?
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
Number one, that's a lie, because there was more than one sparring partner. Yes, he started off with Riyadh. Kay Prosper came in, Casey came in. Then after that, we also had Sam and Daniel Shah, who I boxed with at St Albans Amateur Boxing Club. So it was a lie. But if we go back and talk about the one sparring partner he is talking about, I guess he's talking about Riyadh, who was the first sparring partner he had. He was getting the better of. It's kind of disrespectful again to one of my students. Riyadh was kind of offended by it. When I look back at the video and watched it for myself, it made me think why Deji couldn't just be honest with the whole situation, because it happened. So I have some footage here from sparring alongside Riyadh. We also have some sparring that he'd done with Kay, and I'm just going to analyse it a little bit and talk about what I wanted Deji to do in sparring and what really happened. I asked Deji to kind of have his hands up, wanted him to walk forward to put the pressure on the fighter, also to cut the ring off at times, because Alex being the taller man with a higher reach, if you're going to go back against him, you're going to be walking onto the end of his punches all the time. So we were trying to practice this. It was a big issue because he struggled to take quite a lot of instructions. As you can see, the right hand is low quite a lot, which we wanted him to try and practice the high guard. We were trying to practice that leading up to the end of the camp, which he found quite difficult. Also, Deji has a tendency to dip at the waist kind of like a Pernell Whitaker style, which is a great thing. It's a natural ability that he has, and I wouldn't want to take it away from him. And the only issue is that when you have a fighter that reads that, like my fighter does in Riyadh, because I schooled him to keep him on the end of a long arm, you can't just stay there, you know. If a fighter commits and you dip underneath, it's not a problem. You can dip underneath and now you're in close. As you saw on Fight Night, Alex was committing with his right hand, which was making it easy for Deji to then pivot off and get under. But when you've got a fighter, as you can see here with Riyadh, who's keeping him on the end of the shot, he's landing shots after that because Deji is staying in that same position. I was trying to get him to stop doing that, but it was a combination of a couple of things. Number one, fitness. When you're not fit, you're going to look for a way to kind of navigate through rounds. Number two, Riyadh's a fast fighter. He's dipping underneath and he understands frames, so he's not letting Deji get out of that position by keeping him on the long arm and landing shots and keeping him in that dip down position. So as you guys can all see, the sparring is decent, as in competition wise. Deji, you can see, needs to work on a lot. His fitness is low and Riyadh is more than enough of a competitor to spar with him. So in the face-off video with Alex, Deji said that Riyadh was an easy sparring partner.
I was getting the better of my sparring partner already.
But as we can see from the footage, he's having some trouble there. Time. Hold the ropes. Unlucky. Yeah, up. Being an easy sparring partner? I don't think so, to be honest. I think it was tough, and if we had to start getting the better of him, we could start looking at professionals, but we already had them in. Also, Riyadh, he's only 63 kilos, which is probably more than 10 kilos lighter than Deji. Probably about the same height, just a bit shorter, younger. Quite clearly, as you can see, the sparring ain't easy, is it? So that wasn't the only time Deji touched a canvas in that sparring session. As we can see here, he's taken 2 body shots and gone down. At the time, he did say it was a low blow, but as you can see from watching it back, it's 2 legal shots on the belt. So touching on with that, quite clearly he was finding it hard in that sparring session, unlike how he has stated in that face-off against Alex that it wasn't hard. It was hard. There's nothing wrong with tough sparring, it should be harder than the fight, but for Deji to say it was easy, quite clearly is another lie, on top of the lie of me not pushing him, because I know that I push my fighters. So again, being pushed to the deep end, like Deji stated, he wanted to be pushed in the deep end. That's where he learns. He wanted professionals. As you can see in the sparring footage, this is with K Prosper, who's an English champion, really good fighter. So you can only really push your levels up as much as the fighter has. So K was going to the ability of Deji, and as you can see, he's probably not even at 50% here. For Deji to want someone to really push him a lot harder and go a lot harder in sparring, the likes of a K Prosper, who is a seasoned veteran in the game. He's had a lot of fights. He's a very strong, fit fighter, very skilled fighter. You're not going to learn a lot going in the ring and them going at 100%. You learn by stepping up your level slowly and going through the motions. So going on from that, fight week came. We didn't really have much interaction whatsoever. They was kind of unapproachable. I didn't really want to have any kind of contact. You know, best man was going to win on the night. Alex won. Touching on the fight in itself, there was some improvements with Deji, I must say, since he left me. I'm not going to deny that. He was starting to pivot off of the dip, so credit to Daly showing him that. But at the same time, it just seems like he was trying to navigate through the 5 rounds because, again, I think fitness was the issue. He was clearly in better shape than his previous fights that everyone has seen, but boxing shape and boxing fitness is completely different to just being aesthetically looking fit. So we wanted him to box on the front foot in camp because we knew Alex was the taller fighter. We wanted him to put the pressure on, cut the ring off, close off the exits for Alex. On fight night, he boxed majority on the back foot, which I think was the wrong tactics, but it is what it is. Being the shorter man, the smaller man in the ring, he was letting Alex dictate when to fight and when not to. I think his performance kind of showed overall the kind of effort he has put into training camp, if I'm totally honest with you. If he was totally fit, he's quite an explosive guy on the inside with his combinations. We didn't see a lot of that, mainly being because I personally think he didn't push himself enough. Also, leaving camps late, it's up to him to do that. It's fine. It happens. But ideally, it's not a clever thing to do. Would it have changed the outcome? Probably not. Would I have still been there on fight week? I'm not sure. Depending on how his attitude may have changed, if his attitude changed, I possibly would have. But I was very close to leaving. I had a conversation with Riyadh on the phone about it because I was struggling with it. And he said, if you walk away, obviously I will walk as well. Deji did that for us anyway. So I believe he shouldn't have really left camp, or he should have maybe done his homework a little bit earlier and known who he had wanted to really train with. But leaving camp at that point really didn't make no difference at all in the end. The outcome was a loss, and really and truly we don't know what he could have achieved staying with me. So after the fight, we all stayed at this fight hotel, which is around the corner from the venue. I was with Salt Pappy because I'm his new coach now. But we was coming out of the lift. This was straight after the fight. And we was on the same floor as Deji, I believe. And when I came out of the lift, I saw Dej. And, you know, he kind of gave me the smile, put his head down and shook my hands. And I said, you know, well done, unlucky. And left it at that. I haven't spoke to him since. Again, I wish him all the best in his quest in the future. Unfortunately, our views were not aligned in the boxing game, and he saw differently to how I did. But yeah, I wish him all the best in the future.